I'm Andrea Peart with Canadian Labour Congress, National Representative, Health, Safety and Environment. With 3.2 million members, the Canadian Labour Congress is the largest democratic organization in the country. I'm here to talk about climate change and system change. So climate change is the most pressing issue of our times. There's no longer any question or room for the debate at all. Canada and the world must address the climate crisis. Policies are desperately needed that are going to drastically and dramatically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. But when we talk about system change, we're talking about more than climate change. And when we look at the global economy, we think there's actually two inconvenient truths. The first is catastrophic climate change, but the second is the growing inequality between the wealthy and the rest of us, both internationally and here in Canada. The solutions to halting catastrophic climate change must go beyond wind farms on the roofs of Walmarts or made-in-China solar panels being installed by underpaid contractors on the mansions of rich people. System change is about addressing equity issues and solving the climate crisis. We didn't get into this broken system solely by an over-reliance on fossil fuels and the resulting excess carbon in the atmosphere. There's a lot more to it. Over the past 30 years, global economic growth, quite unsustainably, was fueled by vast increases in consumption and debt accumulation. And during those 3 decades, 30 years, deep imbalances developed in trade between countries and in the distribution of wealth, both within countries and between them. Or simply put, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. As the global economy grew, workers' wages actually stagnated. It didn't trickle down. And in the few cases where workers' wages did increase, they didn't keep pace with productivity. So this contributed to huge imbalances in countries where the income gap again deepened, rich getting richer, poor getting poorer. Meanwhile, in some of the lower wage countries, to strengthen exports, they kept their earnings and wages even lower, thus accelerating the trade imbalances with other countries as low-cost goods were increasingly shipped all over the world. This is a broken system where workers' wages aren't increasing, we're exploiting the resources on the earth, and we're shipping things way too far and keeping them for not nearly long enough. Good economic and job creation policies must address all of the indicators of a good quality of life: the economy, jobs, equity, and the environment. We need a green job strategy, an environmental and economic development strategy that goes beyond just talking about climate change, but which places manufacturing and trade policies at the center of the climate change agenda. We are not disposable, and neither is this planet. We need concrete things that are part of system change. We need retirement security. We need investments in childcare and early learning, home care, long-term care. We need investments in high-quality public education, and we need green jobs. And this is part of a sustainable economy. This is what system change looks like. It's about our cities, our families, our communities being healthier, happier, and more sustainable. But there's good news. The biggest challenge of our generation could be the biggest opportunity of the century for economic growth and good job creation. Addressing climate change isn't just the right thing to do for the planet. It's the right thing to do for the people on the planet, and it's the right thing to do economically. This is a win-win situation where we can, as a planet, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, create jobs, and here in Canada build export potential not seen since the Industrial Revolution. We will not and cannot escape this climate or equity crisis if we do not create a new driving source of national and global demand through higher wages and real investment. But we have to ensure that investment goes into productive enterprises and public infrastructure and services, including just transition for workers affected by changes in employment patterns, rather than just putting money into unproductive financial speculation, part of what got us into the economic crash of 2008. The unfortunate reality is we know what needs to happen. We know what we need to do. I always think that, you get on an airplane and they tell you that the plane might crash. And there's a booklet that tells you everything you can do. You just need to follow it in these little 3 pages. We have the solutions. We have the booklet. It's just a matter of doing it. We know the right thing to do. We just have to do it. The unfortunate reality is that in this country, the current government continues to do as little as possible on climate change. People in the Global South are already feeling the impacts of climate change. In the Global South, climate change is literally a matter of life and death. And here in Canada, our federal government is not even trying. Those who contributed very least to the global climate crisis are being hit first and hardest. And in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, we're not even trying. When I think about system change, it makes me think of Easter Island. And I'm being sincere, I honestly think about Easter Island a fair amount of the time. When things started to go badly on Easter Island, when they were consuming more resources than the island could support, when they were living unsustainably, what did they do? They built moai, big heads. Things got worse. And what happened? They built more heads, more moai. As things worsened, food became more scarce, fresh water was scarce, people were starving, people were dying. What did they do? Bigger heads, all over the island, as big as they can make them. And what's left on Easter Island? Nothing. Nothing except big heads. The system has got to change.